Cabinet is broken, is essentially what he said, right? It's not no longer Canada's broken. He's saying this cabinet is not change.
We have a new cabinet in Canada. It will be in charge of fixing the disaster that this past Liberal government has created, from the housing crisis, affordability crisis, GDP per capita that is the lowest level in the OECD, a lost Liberal decade. And yeah, let's not forget about the shattered relationship with the United States and the rest of the world. And now unemployment levels are at the highest level they have been in the last 9 years outside of the lockdowns. Will this all-star lineup be the change that Canada needs, or is it just putting gasoline on an already burning dumpster fire? Let's go. Here's the distribution map of all the cabinet ministers that Mark Carney has selected. And if you live in Alberta, well, it looks like you're out of luck. And in BC, we got one. Oh yeah, it's so good for the West. Take a look at this map. Here's a picture of all the cabinet ministers, and Mark Carney was right. He has 14 women and 14 men. There are a lot of new faces, but there's also a lot of the same old, same old. Let's get into it. And for all of you that wanted change, well, you're going to be sadly disappointed when you see all of these people that I'm about to show you. It's basically all Justin Trudeau 2.0 for with these ministers. I was hoping they would go into retirement.
Ministers and ministers designate will please come forward as they are named. The Honourable Dominic LeBlanc, President of the King's Privy Council for Canada, Minister responsible for Canada-US trade, intergovernmental affairs, and one Canadian economy.
Oh God, Dominic LeBlanc, Justin Trudeau's babysitter, is responsible for US-Canada trade. What could go wrong here?
Melanie Joly, Minister of Industry, Minister responsible for Canada Economic Development for the Quebec region.
Oh, great. Melanie Joly has a $51,000 bar tab. I wonder if she's still going to have it.
François-Philippe Champagne, Minister of Finance and National Revenue.
Oh my goodness, this guy, all he does in the House of Commons is scream, and now he's a prominent cabinet minister, so he's going to continue to screech in the House of Commons.
The Honourable Indira Anita Anand, Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Oh, she resigned, but when she found out that Mark Carney was coming back and the polling numbers flipped, oh, she's all of a sudden going to be back and running for in the government, and she's got a prominent role. Can't wait to see what she does.
Honourable Patricia Hajdu, Minister of Jobs and Families, Minister responsible for the Federal Economic Development Agency for Northern Ontario.
She was completely useless.
Honourable Stephen Guilbeault, Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture, Minister responsible for official language.
All right, and that guy, he belongs in an orange jumpsuit. He is basically going to destroy Canada. And Stephen Guilbeault, he's the face of Alberta separation, in my opinion. And now let's hear what Pierre Poilievre has to say about Mark Carney's selection for his cabinet.
But now we have to find out if he was serious. And so far, it's not a promising start. The first disappointment is, unfortunately, his cabinet. He appointed Trudeau, but now we have to find out if he was serious. And so far, it's not a promising start. The first disappointment is, unfortunately, his cabinet. He appointed Trudeau's old team and Trudeau's old advisors. Stephen Guilbeault, whose radical green agenda would shut down all future developments in our resource industry, is still the minister responsible for Quebec. Sean Fraser was the immigration minister who caused the immigration crisis, the housing minister who gave us the housing crisis, and now he's the minister responsible for addressing the Liberal crime crisis. It seems like he is the master at failing upward. Chrystia Freeland, who as finance minister hiked capital gains tax and carbon taxes and massively grew our debt to the point where we now spend $1 billion a week on interest, stays in the cabinet. Then there's Gary Anadasangari, the new Minister of Public Safety, who said the actual crimes, the actual issues around bail are quite sound, and they are embedded in, codified in law right now, as in to say that there's nothing wrong with the system. Well, in fact, there's everything wrong, as we see from the growing crime wave on our streets. Then there's François-Philippe Champagne, Trudeau's Minister of Everything, who never really managed to do anything. And he did it very loudly. But nice guy. I'll give him credit. He's a nice guy. But he was the Minister of Industry, during which we had the worst economic growth of any country in the G7. And now he's in charge of the budget. Then there's Joly, LeBlanc, Haidu, Anand. Anand was the president of the Treasury Board, during which time the bureaucracy and the consultant bills blew out of control. In all, 14 Trudeau ministers are now in Carney's cabinet. It's more of the same when Canada needs real change. Even the new additions are problematic. Gregor Robertson was the mayor of Vancouver, who pushed for total legalization of hard drugs, distribution of tax-funded opioids. During his time there, there was a 600% increase in overdoses. Now he's the housing minister. Well, what's his record on housing? Well, he increased housing taxes in Vancouver by 141%, and the result was that housing costs went up by 149%, more than doubling the costs and giving Vancouver, his city, the most expensive housing prices in all of North America. Now, Mr. Carney puts this gentleman in charge of housing. If this is the new blood that Mr. Carney is bringing into the cabinet, then sadly for Canadians, nothing is going to change, and the role of the Conservative Party will be more important than ever. Now, Mr. Carney puts this gentleman in charge of housing. If this is the new blood that Mr. Carney is bringing into the cabinet, then sadly for Canadians, nothing is going to change, and the role of the Conservative Party will be more important than ever.
Yeah, Pierre Poilievre is bang on. We have the same old people, and it's going to be the same old dumpster fire, adding on some other people that have failed, and now it's just going to get ridiculous. And that leads me to CBC, because CBC really didn't like what Pierre Poilievre had to say. And the thing is with CBC, first, it needs to be defunded and completely dismantled. I'm sick of the CBC. But the other thing is, Pierre Poilievre was bang on with his statement. What is he supposed to say? Is he supposed to say that these people are competent when they're not? He didn't say anything wrong, in my opinion.
And talking about how he would not be opposing the government reflexively, that he would do things in the best interest of the country and support the government in those issues, and that he says he wants the country to succeed. He then spent the next 15 minutes talking about all the ministers who were there previously and the things they did to ruin the country, naming particularly Sean Fraser and Stephen Guilbeault, taking some questions about how he will approach things inside the House of Commons. But overall, it started out in one tone and finished in another. That's all I'll say, because he leaned into attacking the people that he thinks still don't represent change, are still more of the Trudeau government, and particularly don't represent the things that he thinks Canadians want right now.
Yeah, cabinet is broken, is essentially what he said, right? It's no longer Canada's broken. He's saying this cabinet is not change. A silent approach from Mr. Poilievre, Rosie, that would suggest it's almost as if he won the election rather than lost the election and lost his own seat. Talking about how he's going to stand there in defense of Canadians. He'll only be able to stand there, actually, in the chamber behind him, because of the goodwill of the Prime Minister, who's going to call an early by-election for Mr. Poilievre so he can run in one of his MP seats in Alberta at a cost of close to $2 million to have a by-election, all while he stays in Stornoway throughout this. So it's interesting that given that sequence of events and given those series of factors, that it was that kind of approach and response to things there from Mr. Poilievre. Going after Stephen Guilbeault, talking about the radical environmental agenda, blaming Sean Fraser for the housing crisis, which is Sean Fraser's I don't think he's 40 yet, or he's just 40. I don't think he caused the housing crisis in Canada.
Not.
There's a whole bunch of layers and effects to that. But, wanting to fight the same political battles we just endured during the 5 weeks of the campaign and for the 2 years leading up to that. So the pivot that people have suggested Mr. Poilievre kind of needed to make ever since Justin Trudeau left and Donald Trump came in.
Who else is sick and tired of David Crocken? What is up his arse? Yeah, he is full of... Okay? I can't stand the man. Literally is the worst of the worst. I'd love to hear from you in the comments section. The guy, obviously, it's 100% biased media. We need this thing to be dismantled. It's disgusting. I'd like to say it's a sad day because we haven't seen from Jagmeet Singh, but I'm relieved. Thank goodness he's gone. But there's one thing, just one thing that Jagmeet Singh said during his time in politics that I agree with based on what I see today.
I got to say, I have seen, if I can be really blunt, I've seen a lot of older white men fail upwards again and again. And that is just going to continue unless we actually try to change things. So I fundamentally believe if you don't change things, you're going to have the same system. And the same system is going to benefit those that were already in power. So you have to fundamentally do things to change it, and that's what equal vote.
There you have it. He said white men fail upwards. And we're going to look at this white man failing upwards, Sean Fraser. Who remembers Pierre Poilievre giving this speech a month ago? Man, it aged perfectly.
Today, the worst immigration minister in the history of the country, who also happens to be the worst housing minister in the history of the country, Sean Fraser, announced that after 10 years helping bring about the lost Liberal decade, he will be running again for Mark Carney. So you're going to have the same Liberal ministers, the same Liberal MPs, the same Liberal strategists making the same Liberal promises as they did to bring about the housing crisis if they're elected for a fourth term.
Yeah, and we just found out that he's responsible for the Minister of Justice. So let me get this straight. He destroyed the housing market. He destroyed immigration. And now he's going to be responsible for justice? A time when crime in Canada is exploding? Yeah, I'm sorry, Canada, but you can't make any of this stuff up. And on the front page of the National Post, we have Carney's cabinet of Trudeau's failures. That sums this whole thing up. We're going to take a look at an interview that Mark Carney just did with Vachi Capello. You're all going to get a kick of this one. Vachi does what she does best. She questions Mark Carney because what we see is it's the same bench of failures.
Some similarities. There's experience being deployed in different ways. I'm a new prime minister, and let's look at the cabinet as a whole, because I'm not quite sure I make the distinction between the quote front bench and the cabinet as a whole. We only have 28 cabinet ministers. That's down from the mid-upper 40s. Some previous governments. Half of those ministers are new. Never been cabinet ministers before. In many cases, they're new to Parliament as a whole. So we're bringing in a lot of fresh energy, fresh ideas, fresh perspectives, alongside with experience, and that's a good team. That's a good management team, in my judgment. Obviously, I spent a lot of time trying to construct it that way.
And I do take the point on the fresh faces, but even when you point to the experience of those who are in the sort of biggest roles, the reason why I highlight them is because they were at the forefront of the decisions that the previous government made.
I disagree with that.
They were. I mean, Mélanie Joly, François-Philippe Champagne, he led the industrial policy. Now he'll be in charge of finance. Dominic LeBlanc led a lot of those files as well. We are used to hearing from them, justifying and explaining the decisions that Justin Trudeau made. Well, so now we're going to hear from them again.
Well, first off, now you're hearing from me. I'm a new Prime Minister. I'm the 24th Prime Minister of Canada. I've got very clear set of objectives, which I laid out in the course of my initial government from that cabinet table. Cancel the carbon tax right there. In fact, just to our right is my first act. But developing this focus on one Canadian economy, Getting rid of internal trade barriers will do our job by Canada Day. That means the federal government. We're working with the provinces so that they can move out of the way. Some of them are moving really fast, Nova Scotia, Ontario, others moving fast. We're trying to get all of them. But plus unlocking these major projects that are going to build this economy for the next generations, not just growth today, but growth for generations. That's a focus. That is an entirely new focus of this government. At the same time, we're working on this economic security partnership with the Americans and diversifying our trade partnership. Different focus, different people. I'm bringing a different, I mean, there were so many differences. As I say, half of the cabinet is different. Big change in terms of priorities. Big change in terms of speed. This is one of the fastest swearing in Canadian history. It will be one of the fastest returns in Parliament in Canadian history. You'll see with the speech from the throne, which the King will deliver in whatever it is, 12 days' time, 13 days' time. And in that speech from the throne are going to enumerate some priorities, including success by Canada Day. So we're going to go hard.
So how do you articulate, because you conceded today, you did through the campaign, that the mandate you have is one for change. It's against that backdrop that I'm asking those questions about those big faces for your cabinet. How would you articulate to Canadians like what that change will actually look like? Is it just you?
So, well, no. Okay, if I may, you are going into process and personnel. I'm going to results. I'm talking about one Canadian economy. I'm talking about getting rid of all the federal barriers.
But those personnel didn't deliver.
No. Please, let me answer the question. Those are real results that will happen or not. We will either pass that legislation or not. First point. Secondly, in terms of working with the provinces, working with Indigenous peoples, working with the territories, identifying the nation-building process, a process that has already begun. I helped start it during my first few days as Prime Minister in the previous mandate, now going to accelerate through, already talking with Premier Smith, Premier Moe, Premier Ford, Premier Legault, all the premiers about Premier Canute, sorry, now I'm going to offend somebody because I haven't mentioned them all, but they're all working on this and working towards our Saskatoon First Ministers meeting, June 2nd. Again, that's a tangible thing. You'll see where we're coming together on specific projects. What's the federal government doing to support those? What are we doing with respect to our relationship with the United States? So these are all real things. And to reduce it, to faces, personnel, and then, by the way, to ignore half of the cabinet, which is brand new, literally. Never been in cabinet before, and now they're in very senior roles at core priorities for the government.
Here's my take on this, Canada. When you ramble on, it means that you are not confident whatsoever. This guy is way over his head. He is not a prime minister. He's a banker. He doesn't have prime minister experience, and he's going to get absolutely slammed. He should have fired every single one of those useless liberal MPs, part of Justin Trudeau's caucus. He's bringing all of the worst faces back. And Stephen Guilbeault, we're going to talk about Stephen. He's back too. Here we have Stephen Guilbeault. Listen to his job.
The Honourable Stephen Guilbeault, Minister of Canadian Culture and Identity, Parks Canada and the Quebec Lieutenant.
Do you get that, Canada? He is our culture and identity. That's just straight up messed up. Here we have the swearing in of Gregor Robinson, our new housing minister.
I, Gregor Robertson, do solemnly and sincerely declare that I shall be a true and faithful servant to His Majesty King Charles III as a member of His Majesty's Privy Council for Canada.
Let's take a look at Mr. Gregor Robinson's track record. Here is the median home price in Vancouver under Gregor Robinson. When he started in 2008. He was finished in 2018 for 10 years. The house price was $862. And when he finished, it was 3 times more expensive. Maybe, just maybe, that's why everybody wants this guy in charge, because they want their home prices to go up in value. And here's a post I did today. Gregor Robinson is now the housing minister of Canada. As mayor, homelessness exploded. Affordability collapsed. The Olympic Village, that was a financial disaster. And this is the guy that's now in charge of fixing Canada's housing crisis. And get this, after Donald Trump said that he absolutely despises Chrystia Freeland, and everybody was hoping she would get a position as a backbencher or a position in Europe or something so we wouldn't even see her. Maybe that would help our negotiations with Donald Trump. But no, she was given a prominent position. Guess what her position is? She's Minister of Transportation and Minister of Internal Affairs. And this is going to be hilarious because she can't even negotiate or be part of foreign affairs, clearly. And now she's going to be dealing with internal affairs. I'm sure that's going to work out perfectly. And now she's going to be the transportation minister, doesn't even own a car, and she's been fined for speeding. Yeah, she was going 132 kilometers an hour on an Alberta highway. She doesn't even drive a car. Wouldn't you want someone that's the transportation minister to be able to drive? Here's our new transportation minister explaining to Canadians.
A fact that still shocks my dad is I don't actually own a car because I live in downtown Toronto.
There you have it, Canada. She doesn't even own a car. I'm sure she's going to be fantastic at transportation. This was Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister. She had a $51,000 a month bar tab. Now we have Anita Anand. Who remembers her saying that you and I are going to have to bear the brunt and the cost for any retaliatory tariffs?
Need to bear the sacrifice that would be made if we move forward with retaliatory measures of this sort?
Yeah, you are going to have to pay for it. Yeah, we know, Anita. Let's take a look at Anita Anand's track records and of failure. Yeah, LifeLab conflict, where her husband sat on LifeLab's board and they got a government contract for $60 million. No formal record of recusal. And the Arrive Scam app. Oh, we love that Arrive Scam app, where she claimed she didn't know the DND employee, which was tied to the $7.9 million contracts, while she was defense minister, which oversaw the $59.5 million debacle. And she promised that she would get rid of the waste and consultants she promised to cut, but McKinsey and Co. kept getting shady contracts, one after another. And then our military crisis, in which we saw recruitments plummet and lowered physical standards. Remember that? Oh yeah, we're just going to accept anybody. Even if you can't see, you are going to be part of the armed forces. And of course, we can't forget about liberal cover-ups. Enabled Justin Trudeau's biggest failures. No accountability, just political games. So Mark Carney loves Anita Anand. She's getting a prominent role because we all know that she's going to be a yes woman. Yes, sir. And I really wonder if she's going to be getting Melanie Jolie's $51,000 a month bar tab, or are they both going to be getting the $51,000 bar tab? And let's not forget, this is the guy that's culture and identity of Canada, the Minister of Culture and Identity. He should have remained in that orange jumpsuit. And today came with a little bit of comedy as well. Who remembers this?
You said that you weren't seeking re-election in the upcoming election, and you seem to have put some thoughts before accepting this new job. Why did you accept the job, and are you running in the next election?
I had decided about a year ago, I guess, that I wasn't going to run. After conversations with my family, I got 2 young kids. It's actually my soon-to-be 5-year-old's birthday party later today, and this morning at 5 a.m. I was stuffing a creeper piñata with candy. So it's been a day, but it was a tough leadership race last year, and that balance wasn't right. That balance between sacrifice, but also that ability to make a difference, and is the sacrifice justified by virtue of the difference that you're able to make? And that balance wasn't there, and an opportunity came along where you can make an even bigger difference. Sean's a good friend, and he's done important work on housing. Housing, to me, is, outside of Canada-U.S. relations, the most important file for, I see millions of Canadians who are rightly angry about housing, where they see their parents are better off than they are, even though they're working just as hard and have a job that's just as good. I see, you look around, every one of our communities is affected by homelessness and encampments, and that's a consequence of housing. You look at productivity, and people want to talk about productivity in this country, and we should. And people are leaving my city, my province, and our country because they can't afford to live here. And so you know, look, I understand there's going to be a short runway. I'm not blind to that. But if I can make a small difference, if I can make a big difference, I want to make the biggest difference that I can. That's why I joined politics in the first place, left law for politics. And so, you know, it wasn't an easy decision by any means. And yeah, I consulted colleagues. I consulted my wife more than anything. And I plan to run the next election in order to protect the progress and really in the short term make the biggest difference that I can.
Yeah, so guess what? He is absolutely pissed today. Showed his frustration online because he thought that Mark Carney would pick him to continue the role as housing minister. We all know he picked Gregor Robinson. So here's his post today. Congratulations to all my colleagues. We're going to move down. I got 113,000 views. But right here, he says, I ran because I wanted the opportunity to make a huge difference around the cabinet table and to fix the housing crisis. I'm not back in any role, unfortunately. So this might not surprise you to learn that it's kind of been a strange day. It's impossible not to feel disrespected. There you have it. And as the anti-taxer says here on X, he says, I'm really enjoying the Nate public meltdown today. It's almost worth paying him just so that he could sit in the backbenches and be bitter about it. Well, he wanted to leave a year ago. He probably should have done that. And this is what I said. Nate, you should not feel disrespected after being dropped from cabinet. Buddy, count yourself lucky. You won't be the one that is forced to make the announcement of the home equity tax. The honor will go to Gregor Robinson, a man who is about to be the most hated name in Canadian politics. We all know they're going to try and go after home equity tax next.
You yourself, your book Values, for example, which extensively talks about a reorientation of the market around the climate imperative. I think Canadians had been asking throughout the campaign, and now, like, is this Prime Minister Mark Carney of values, or is it the Prime Minister of the campaign? Like, are you going to build that pipeline if the consensus exists?
First off, I've said repeatedly yes, first point. Secondly, that because I understand the need for that consensus, I'm a Prime Minister who can help create that consensus. You can't create a consensus on your own, but you have to drive processes that bring provinces along, bring the private sector in. Remember, I've got extensive experience. This is not just a concept to me. I have been involved in major energy projects for over 3 decades in the private sector, so I've got that experience. Bringing the provinces, working with Indigenous partners, putting in place, as we have, billions of dollars of financing for those Indigenous partners, bringing in somebody like Tim Hodgson, who, when he was CEO of Hydro One, was one of the only major corporations to have a major Indigenous partnership program that actually worked. So we're bringing the components in. We have to deliver. Let me make another point, because I appreciate that you've read my book very carefully. At the core of the way I talk about the energy transition is the future of, including about Canada being an energy superpower, is the future is low risk. Canada's low risk is a business investment place. Low cost. We're getting the cost down, including the oil sands. The marginal production is low cost, and low carbon. All three of those come together. We have the ingredients of all that. Let's get together and move on it. And it takes more than just one pipeline in order to accomplish.
And I do understand that point, but I think, like, in your book, multiple occasions, for example, you talk about the merits of a carbon tax. And now we have a different Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who says, the first thing I did in this very room was get rid of the carbon tax.
Got rid of the consumer carbon tax,
correct,
which is different than
the industrial side, but it's still a portion of the carbon tax scheme that existed in this country.
How much of the resources did that consumer, how much of the emission reduction did that consumer
9%.
Carbon tax? Yeah. Well, it's actually 6, but if you extrapolate it out to 2030,
if it went
as far
as it was supposed to go, it's not nothing.
It's not nothing.
And now everybody's saving money on gas. They could have reduced inflation when inflation exploded. It just makes me sick.
It's not much. It's not much. And we can do much better with different approaches, including collaborative approaches, which is what I'm looking to do. And look,
how can you be collaborative?
If you want a simple answer on will I support building a pipeline? Yes, that simple answer. I've given that multiple times. But I don't stop at that. I don't stop at, for example, if you want a simple answer on how do I make homes more affordable, I could just say, we're going to cut GST on homes. But that doesn't solve the problem. Just doing one pipe, it's good. Don't get me wrong, it's good. That's a positive thing, and working collaboratively in order to happen. But it's not enough. It's not enough to make Canada an energy superpower. It's not enough to build our full potential. It's not enough to truly get incomes growing across the country. We can do much more. We are going to be very, very ambitious. Build big, build bold, build now.
It does speak, though, to what people in Alberta and Saskatchewan who didn't vote for your party are worried about, right? They are worried that it is the Mark Carney of values, it is the Justin Trudeau government, and the reason I ask about that is against that backdrop, right? You are still saying you're going to keep C-69 in place. You are going to keep the emissions cap in place. They view that as evidence of something. They view that, pardon me, as evidence of something that runs counter to what you're saying right now.
What I've said very clear. Look, I am a pragmatist. I go over and over on this, and I really am. I'm interested in results. So the point of building a pipeline, the point of building out carbon capture is to get the results, to get those barrels to the market, to get carbon down. You can do both. We have the capability to do more. And we have the capabilities financially, from a technological perspective, in terms of the companies. Federal government can play a role. The province of Alberta, obviously other provinces, Indigenous people have to come along for almost all of these projects in order for them to actually work. And what I'm putting on the table is, okay, let's go. Let's not talk about this. Let's roll up our sleeves. Let's focus in on specific projects, and let's work on them together. Now, very constructive, sorry if I may, constructive conversations with Premier Moe in this vein, also with Premier Smith in this vein. So the next stage of that is to sit down across premiers and other groups and start to refine that list and move forward. And we will change things at the federal level that need to be changed in order for projects to move forward.
Does that include C-69 or the emissions cap?
Yeah, it could include both. Yeah, absolutely could include both. But I'm not going to do it conceptually. I'm going to do it on specifics. Do it for moving forward. And that's the point.
Is Mark Carney and his government going to turn things around and turn it around quickly? Because 8 million Canadians voted for change in Canada, and Alberta and Saskatchewan are giving this new government under 12 months to show results, or they may be out. Is the Mark Carney's new government? It just looks like the same old government with a new suit. The same faces, the same failures, the same promises of affordability that we've heard for over a decade. I generally don't know what's worse. They keep saying it, or people are actually buying it. I would love to hear from you in the comment section. We'll see you on the next report.